What up, what up, what up? Welcome to our very first episode of Beyond the Sign, a real estate podcast. I'm your host, Frank the Bank Grootman. With me is the tattooed realtor herself, Tanya Blake. Why do they call you the tattooed realtor?
I got a couple tattoos I've been collecting for a while now.
You got more than a couple. I've heard of an arm sleeve, a leg sleeve, but never a real back sleeve.
Yeah, whole back piece solid.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's great. So our episode, our podcast is really about real estate, some insights, good, bad, ugly stories. We got a lot to talk about, so we can get right into this. Let's get into our first segment called the Property Pulse. Tanya, what do you got for me?
Well, for Plymouth County today, we have 429 active listings. To narrow it down to Wareham, we'll focus on Wareham.
Yeah.
We've got 27 active listings, so
Wow.
It's pretty much the same as it was last year. The average sale price this year is $625, and the highest listed property in Wareham is sitting at $2,149,000. And the lowest property is $160,000.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. So a lot of this time last year too, similar. Not a lot to choose from. 30 some odd houses on the market. There's 27 currently right now. So yeah, local again, Property Pulse being some of the local statistics that we like to talk about here, and we'll get into some national stuff too. So, I think seems pretty. Trend wise, seems the same as last year.
Yeah,
Is that what you noticed?
It's pretty similar. They're still sitting on for 75 days, which is pretty typical this time of year.
Yep.
We'll start seeing more and more inventory popping on the market. The nicer the weather gets.
Yeah. Yeah, you typically see that in the wintertime anyway. Less to choose from, not as busy, but the spring market being almost here now, we're starting to see a little bit of an increase.
Yeah, we're starting to see them already starting to pop on, so it's already picking up.
It's awesome. I got some national stuff that I kind of looked through statistics-wise. I know J.P. Morgan just published their 2025 housing outlook. Some of the things that they're saying that it's similar to what we're talking about, very similar market to last year. They expect a slight increase in prices, 2 to 3% increase in prices this year overall. They're also predicting that the rates will stay pretty steady with a slight decrease to 6.7. Which is better than it was last year, but again, just a slight decrease there. Another takeaway from the report that I saw was that for newly constructed homes, the average national price was $481,000, which is the highest price for a newly constructed home since 2007. Before that recession back then. Also, National Association of Realtors and Bankrate.com published their market predictions for 2025. Some of the things that they're talking about there, median home sale price for January of this year, 2025, was $396,900, which is the highest ever since they've been keeping track of that for a January. That being said, in June, the prices for the median price was $426,900, so $427, call it. So slightly down from June, but since last January to this January, an overall 4.8% increase from January to January, which I thought was pretty interesting. Again, they're expecting slight increase this year in prices. I think that's kind of what you've seen too, a little bit.
That's pretty much what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Same.
One other thing that we like to talk about a lot is like market in terms of like a balanced market, buyers and sellers. It's been a seller's market for a few years now. The National Associations of Realtors just came out with their supply inventory. So right now it's up from last January to 3.5 months supply of inventory. Last January it was 3. What does that mean? It means basically that it's still a seller's market because the National Association of Realtors says a 5 to 6 month supply of real estate inventory is what's needed to have a balanced market.
Yeah, more balanced.
Yeah, so right now it will still be slightly a seller's market until that inventory hits that 5 to 6 month level, which again, in spring, it could be more. A lot going on in the country, so there's some different things like that. It very well could increase to that number to kind of give us a more balanced market, but it looks like it's going to be a seller's market this year again, based on these two predictions there. So
definitely could use some more balance.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think the balance would be good. that's all I have for the Property Pulse. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about on Property Pulse, but if not, we can get right into our next segment called the Mortgage Minute.
We can get rolling.
All right. So Mortgage Minute, bankrate.com as of February 26th showed the average interest rate to be about 6.84%. So a little higher than that number that we just talked about of 6.7, which is where, Bankrate is expecting and JP Morgan's expecting the rates to fall this year. So again, seeing some steady stuff there. I'm not sure if that's what you've seen as well. I know you said 7% last year, right?
I'm seeing the same thing. When the rates start coming down, we'll start seeing more buyers out there too. So it'll be good for them.
Yes, again, slightly better than last year right now, and they're expecting it to get a little bit better, but pretty much stay steady this year. A lot of good programs out there if you're not familiar, but there's FHA, the Mass Housing Loans got some pretty cool grants. There's rehab loans, rental loans.
There's something for everybody right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of different programs. Some of these are coming back, from the recession, when things changed quite a bit. But I think we're going to have some special guests on to talk more specifically about certain programs, mortgage brokers and mortgage officers and things like that. But do you have any tips for any buyers out there?
I do. I think it's probably one of the biggest tips I can give a buyer starting out is, start with your lender, get a verified pre-approval instead of just a basic pre-approval.
Yep.
And what that means is a basic pre-approval is just a lender's estimate based on stated income and a soft credit pull.
Yep.
It's a good starting point, but it doesn't carry as much weight. A verified pre-approval, on the other hand, means your lender's fully reviewed your income, your credit, your assets everything. So that makes your offer a little bit stronger.
For sure.
Because a seller sees you as a serious, more qualified buyer.
Yeah, I do that with almost all of my buyers. Anybody can go online and just plug in some data and get a pre-approval in seconds. Get pre-approved in 5 minutes, whatever. But if it's income and your assets aren't verified, you can put any number you want in there and have a pre-approval.
Yeah, getting that documentation together.
It's huge. It makes such a big difference, and we do that. Me and Tanya have over 30 years experience in real estate, and that's what we do with almost every single buyer. Obviously, if you have a cash buyer, then good for you. I'm glad you got the cash, but you would need a proof of funds letter to make an offer, but definitely verified pre-approvals the way
it really helps you stand up against cash offers, especially in competitive situations, which we've seen for the past couple of years.
Oh yeah, for sure. It makes your offer way more competitive. So, and you don't want to waste your time or any of your money, and the same thing with the seller. They don't want to waste time either. They want to get the deal done. So that's all we have for the Mortgage Minute this week. Again, we're going to have some special guests on for that segment as well, but typically not going to take too long of that. Just talk briefly about interest rates and things like that. The next part of our podcast is probably going to be the funnest part and what people tune in for the most, and that's what we call the closing confessions, where me and Tanya talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly stories.
We got stories.
We got stories, again, over 30 years experience. So getting to the closing table or not getting to the closing table, and some of the crazy things that happen in real estate, kind of beyond the sign, beyond the scenes, behind the scenes stuff. So this week is a scary story. I'm going to warn you. So if you get scared easy, you might want to mute us right now and, I'm going to turn the lights back on. But Tanya has a pretty creepy story, and I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. So Tanya, why don't you start us off and kind of give us an idea of what happened with this house?
All right. It's definitely an interesting story. It's something I've never dealt with before. But at one point, a couple years ago, I had it was an old inn. So it was 5 separate units, and it was run by the same family for years and years and years.
Yeah. I remember that being an old place.
It was closed for a while.
Yep.
All the doors shut. It wasn't used. And then they listed the property. So there was one evening when I was showing it to a group of buyers or potential buyers.
Yep.
And I gave them the tour. And lastly, we went down to the basement, and I don't like basements to begin with.
Yeah, who does? Especially in these old houses.
It's definitely, the creepy cobwebs. But we got down there, and I go to show them one of the rooms in the basement, and it caught my eye that my name was literally carved into the door downstairs, and I hadn't seen it previously. Like it was.
Yeah, you had already been there for pictures and other things and other showings, and you never noticed it, and then. that's just, I remember you showed me the picture, and we have a picture for you guys to see here.
We'll put the picture up.
And it is,
and it wasn't just carved
it
in.
looked
was like,
fresh too. That's just so creepy.
We had like a backwards N.
Oh.
It was
That's creepy. It
was weird.
That's a creepy one. I mean, we talk about in real estate what's called stigmatized properties. So this does come up from time to time, and it depends on which state you're in for whether it has to be disclosed or not. And I'm going to read you exactly what the National Associations of Realtors defines a stigmatized property as. I actually copied this from their website, so I just want to read that and kind of get into that. So the National Association of Realtors defines stigmatized property as a property that has been psychologically impacted by an event which occurred or was suspected to have occurred on the property, such event being one that has no physical impact of any kind. Many circumstances can stigmatize a property: location, murder, suicide in the house, alleged hauntings, or a notorious previous owner. So that's what they define as a stigmatized property. So we have stuff here and everywhere. Every state is different as to whether or not this has to be disclosed by the seller or the real estate agents. Massachusetts is a caveat emptor state, meaning let the buyer beware. Do your own due diligence, but if somebody was murdered,
Google is your friend.
Yes, Google is your friend. Murdered, or if it's haunted, or whatever it is, it's really technically up to you. You can ask the question. Some states make it so you have to, it has to be disclosed if you think the house is haunted and it has a stigma. Some states say it only has to be disclosed if you're asked. Again, if you're buying, a very old house, I mean, most likely someone may have passed away in that house.
Something probably happened.
Yeah, of course. So things like that, again, very...
I have another story, another time.
Yeah, we got,
house.
again, this section's going to be great. We're going to be talking about different stories.
Yeah.
Some are good, some are scary, some are bad. But yeah, I think that was kind of the stigmatized property. This house may have qualified for that. And again, if there's any sort of, go to Google and check to see if this house was ever considered haunted or whatever. But the old, and we had one in Massachusetts, usually a stigmatized property, if someone was murdered or a bad crime happened there, it usually makes the value go down. But we had one in 2021 right here in Massachusetts that sold for quite a bit of money, the Lizzie Borden house in Fall River.
Oh, yeah.
So that sold for over $2 million, I think that was. Yeah, it was $2 million in 2021. And they use it as a bed and breakfast and a museum. So that one actually added value. And then, the Amityville Horror House. I mean, certain houses, this can add value if you use it. People like being scared. So Lizzie Borden right in Fall River. I mean, I don't know. Would you stay overnight there?
I don't know.
I haven't done it, but I mean, I thought about doing it. It'd kind of be cool to do the bed and breakfast one time. So yeah, that's all we have for the closing confessions. And again, this is going to be probably the best part of our show every week. Kind of the funnest part of our show. We talk about some of the good, the bad, the ugly stories, things like that. So, thanks for joining us on our very first episode of Beyond the Sign. We appreciate you watching and sharing. And please send any, questions or things you want us to talk about. And send us any closing confessions you may have. And again, Frank Roatman, Tanya Blake with Jack Conway. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.